Imagine this. Your dog hates toenail trims. He hates them so much that when he sees you holding clippers, he immediately bolts from the room. As a puppy, you thought you were doing everything right. You made toenail trims as nonchalant as possible and always paired trims with treats and pets. There was that one time, though, a pet store worker offered free toenail trims for puppies and she clipped too far. Your puppy screamed and bled everywhere. Since then, he hasn't been nearly as cooperative and you had to hold him still to get trims done. Now imagine your sweet puppy has grown up and now outweighs you. Holding him still has become impossible, and now you need multiple people to hold him still. You decide it would be simpler to just have a groomer handle him, but that idea ended abruptly when your dog, absolutely terrified, pulled a grooming table across the salon. So since then, toenail trims continue to be a dreaded ordeal in your home and a point of anxiety for everyone involved. But what if there was a way to avoid the stress and anxiety that comes with toenail trims? What if there was a way that you could get your dog to not only hold still for toenail trims, but to come running, tail wagging, and even offer his paws on cue for you to clip? This is the story of my dog and I, Pharaoh, and our journey to achieving exactly that. You see, for Pharaoh and I, training has always been one of the favorite parts of our relationship, and something that we both look forward to. Pharaoh does some pretty amazing stuff. And yet, this simple, routine behavior was something that we struggled with for a very long time. The moment that it became clear to me was when I thought about toenail trims not as this horrifying and dreaded experience that I procrastinated about, but instead just another trick. And Pharaoh and I love tricks. The process we use to learn this trick is called counter-conditioning and desensitization. In layman's terms, we are taking something scary, breaking it down into super small pieces to the point that it's no longer scary, pairing it with something that the dog loves, in Pharaoh's case food, and taking small steps to build up to the point that the scary thing becomes something the dog loves almost as much as the reward itself, with or without the presence of the reward. First, I need a reward marker. That is, a sound that marks the behavior I like and bridges the gap between the moment Pharaoh does something right and the time it takes me to deliver the reward. Using the reward marker is like taking a snapshot of exactly what I want in the dog's mind, and so timing is imperative. I want to make the sound the moment that Pharaoh gets it right, not the moment before or the moment after, or else I'm taking a snapshot of something completely different. My usual go-to device is a clicker, a box that I operate with my hand that makes a sharp and distinctive clicking noise. But with toenail trimming, I need both of my hands and are thus unable to operate the clicker, so I've decided to use a whistle. You might be wondering, why don't I just use my voice then? Wouldn't that be easiest? I could, but in most cases, having a novel sound that the dog rarely hears is much more effective. This is because, as humans, we relay so much with our tone of voice. Have you ever heard someone frustratingly asking their dog to sit? Sit. Sit. I said sit. Pharaoh, sit. Sit, sit, sit. Sit that booty. When the dog finally sits, which cue was the cue that the dog was listening to? Which cue and which tone of voice actually communicated to the dog that he needed to be sitting? Translation to the dog, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Pharaoh, blah, 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 blah. Because dogs don't speak English, we can be darn confusing. With a novel sound, however, it's a clear-cut marker that the dog has had a success, and it shuts us up so the dog can concentrate on solving the problem that will earn him the reward. In the following video, you will see me charging the whistle. What this means is that I'm showing Pharaoh through classical conditioning that when he hears the noise, it means a treat follows. This is the first time Pharaoh and I have ever used the whistle. I start by whistling, and then after about 1 second, delivering a treat. I now know he's getting the idea because on that last whistle, the moment I whistle, he immediately cocked his head and looked at my treat pouch. For Pharaoh, that took about 25 seconds. Check out that last whistle again. I spend about 30 more seconds just whistling and rewarding, and then I switch to showing Pharaoh that he earns whistles with his behaviors by asking him to perform some behaviors that he already knows, like hand targeting, sits, head shaking, and waving. Now it's time to start desensitizing the toenail trim. I brought the toenail clippers in the room and just set them on the floor. I don't touch them while we're working. I start whistling for allowing me to pick up and handle his feet. I'm off to a rocky start, as you can see. Pharaoh is pulling his paws away and jumping backwards. This is a sign that I've gone too far too fast. I need to break this down more. You can see that he desperately wants to play this training game, but is anxious and fearful about having his feet handled. He is pacing and trying to give me different body parts that I might give him whistles for. I start being gentler about lifting up his paws and whistling for extremely brief touches without touching his actual toenails. And here's my first success. He briefly offers me a paw to touch. I continue moving gently. You can tell that he's still a little unsure, only letting me touch paws briefly and then pulling them back. I want to be sure he's comfortable at this stage before I make anything scarier, and I also want to be sure that I'm whistling the instance that I'm making contact with his paws and not the moment he's pulling them away. I continue this session with very easy paw touches and end on a positive note. I begin our second session by spending a few minutes briefly reviewing our progress in session 1, giving him whistles for brief touches to his paw pads. When it's clear he's comfortable at this level, I make it slightly more difficult by giving him whistles for allowing me to touch one toenail briefly at a time. I try to keep my rate of reinforcement high, meaning I'm delivering rewards at a high speed and getting in a lot of reps. Every once in a while, I wiggle the toenails as I touch them for an added challenge. He's accepting so far. Nearing the end of this session, I decide to see what happens if I pick up the toenail trimmers and try to touch them to his toenails. And fail. That's way too much, so I switch to whistling any interaction at all with the trimmers, and then just handling his feet while I'm holding the trimmers. I start moving the trimmers back and forth while handling his feet, and by the end of the session, he's accepting the trimmers near his toenails as I'm handling. The next 2 sessions, I continue rewarding for touching his nails with the trimmers. Here is session 5. I start whistling for longer contact with the trimmers, and then for letting me put the trimmers around the toenails and making the cutting motion. And here I attempt to make the first cut. Success! I praise Pharaoh and give him a jackpot reward of multiple treats in a row. I end this session with additional repetitions of placing the trimmers around his nails, and as always, end on a positive note. Here is the beginning of session 6. I'm so excited to see Pharaoh trotting after me, tail wagging as I'm carrying the trimmers. What a stark contrast to what I was used to even a week prior to this video. I continue more reps at our current level in this session, getting in a couple of more complete cuts. Session 7 begins the back feet. After some fumbling, I decide to have Pharaoh lay down. This works much better. Just like before, I start with whistles for handling, and then touching with the trimmers. In the next session, I decide having Pharaoh lay down on his settle mat for his trims would make things go more smoothly. Pharaoh is a little unsure with the change and pulls away. Take note that when he pulls away, I don't scold him. He merely does not earn a reward until he exhibits a correct behavior. I back up a little and reward him for easier behaviors before trying another full cut. He builds confidence quickly. One more session and Pharaoh is becoming more and more confident. I am now able to make frequent cuts without Pharaoh exhibiting any fear or trying to get up. And here is the finished product. I am now able to trim Pharaoh's nails each and every time I pick up his paws. I no longer need the whistle, and I no longer have to reward after every cut. I do occasionally reward after each nail, sometimes after every other nail, sometimes after an entire paw, and occasionally one big reward at the end. This is called putting a behavior on a random rate of reinforcement. This can strengthen the behavior just like the addiction that comes with playing slot machines at a casino. You always want to play the game because you never know when you will win. Remember, when trying this with your own dog, always go at your dog's pace. Some may learn slowly and some faster than others. If your dog starts to be uncomfortable, back up to the point he was comfortable and break the behavior down more, then move back up slowly. Use treats that are high value to your dog and are small enough that can be eaten very quickly. During our training, Pharaoh got teeny tiny bits of hot dog while we worked, no bigger than my pinky nail. And most importantly, have fun with your dog. If you aren't having fun, your dog won't either.